Hello, and thank you for joining us here at Beautiful Literature with me, Teacher Martha. I am so glad that you could join us. Now, if you're new here, please welcome, and I encourage you to look up at the other work that we've done, and because we are discussing the themes in the Parliament of Owls. And so therefore, I would want us to just go through the other themes that we have. But previously, in the previous video, we looked at two themes. And so in this one, we looked at the misuse of power, and we also looked at betrayal. And in this one, we look at religion and the role of religion in the text, and we'll also talk about suffering. And so, and maybe one more depending on how much time allows us to do. But so let's go into it, and I want to hope that you have read the text and you understand it. And if you haven't, just go ahead and look at the other plot analysis that I did earlier in the other videos. They will help you to understand what the story is about, so that even as we do this analysis, you will not be left out a bit confused. And so we are looking at the role of religion and superstition in this text. And I want to begin by saying that religion, like someone said, I'm not very sure who said that religion is the opium of the masses. Religion is the opium of masses, such that the masses, if you put something in the name of religion, you can be sure the masses will take it. Then that's why even in our country or even in the world, we have religious leaders who comfortably take advantage of other people, of the people, because I think we keep thinking that these religious leaders, as long as someone comes in the name of the Lord or in the name of their Lord, they should not be questioned. They should not be made held accountable. Those people are superior. They are almost near the supreme deity, and so on. And so they take advantage of that. And by the end of the day, most of them, they end up harassing and hurting the members and the people who listen to them, the people who follow them. Just the other day, we were dealing with very many serious issues concerning religion and the Shakahola thing. And that is just part of it. And I know you're in our country, Kenya, and you know what happens in our religious circles. And even how our leaders who claim to be religious and to be godly, but the things they do, we are left thinking, really, is this an example of godliness? Are you really a true Christian? Should we really be looking up to you because we feel like you are just hiding in the name of God? And so when you're talking about in this text, it would be wrong for us not to look at the religion and the role of it plays in this text. It begins us off with the discussion about the moonlight tax. And when Aram TD is asking, and even Telltale, they are discussing about this moonlight bill. What is it for? I mean, why are we having a tax? Why are we being taxed? One, you've already put us down on the do's and the don'ts. Number two, then you want to add money into it. Why would we be paying money for something like that? And then you are told that money actually you're paying, it is not only for us, it is actually to help the sick and the poor in the society. And number two, if you don't like the word tax, you can consider it as tithe. Tithe that is being given to the gods. And they have one of the birds called the falcon, and he can fly very high up past the clouds, and he's told actually that tithe will give it to falcon to take it to the gods. Now, why would you even talk to people like that? Kwani, who do you think they are? I mean, how you're thinking that they cannot see that you're lying, that I'm asking you for this money to pay for this tax, and this tax is not actually tax, it is tithe. You know what tithe is? Is the 10% of your earnings, and we do that a lot in church and from our religious perspectives and our, depending on whatever it is you believe in. And so it is wrong for Red String to bring in a religious point there, because people are already hurting. So why would you drag the name of God into that? And so he also tells him that when they ask many questions, just tell them, actually this whole idea is a revelation from the gods. So he's actually still dragging the name of religion into this moonlight bill. And that is this on religion. And when you talk about superstition, we are saying that it's a situation where some people or a community or a society thinks about supernatural powers. They think that life does not just happen here. There is some unseen superior powers and deities that control what it is we are doing. It is not about, it's not like religion. It means it is something more societal. It's something more of our culture that actually we can attach to whatever that is going on. And even in oral literature, we talk about superstitious beliefs. We talk about taboos and so on. Because we think when you do this is what will happen to you. When you do this offense, even if you don't get punished by the law, you will still get your punishment from the gods or from the spirits or from the ancestors. Now, that is superstition we are talking about. And we see quite a bit of that in this text, especially when it comes to the royal space that we have. We have the royal owl, who is actually more of a revered bird, where it's mysterious. He's mysterious. You wouldn't even get to know exactly who he is, what he likes, what he doesn't like, how does he think, and so on. And remember, even most of the birds do not know him. Like when Oyundi was having a small chat with the other birds, they would tell him, Oyundi, now that you have met with Royal Ola, how is he? What kind of a bird is he? I mean, because they have never ever heard about him. They've never seen him. They've not interacted with him. Why? Because he's high up there, and he's not supposed to be accessed by the common man. And also remember when Red String was also talking, and he was saying that that if only you can, he was telling Aramtid, if only you can remember what the royal owl says, and he adds to say, but I know you don't know because you're not lucky enough to come across him. What does that mean? That the royal owl is not accessible to the common birds, the birds down here. And so that his leadership, the royal trees are also, some revered places. Actually, they call it the revered places. It's a revered throne. It's a place where it's not for commoners. That's why Aramtidi, when he's told he'll get soup at the royal trees, he would rather do anything. When anybody is told he will go to the royal trees, for them, they would rather do anything and make sure they go there, because it looks like a divine space that they have. And just to sum it on that, are pure. Yeah, there's a talk about the golden beads. Can you imagine that they think that the what gives powers to this to the royal owl and to the leadership is not because of their head, they're able to strategize, they're able to be wise and intelligent, it's because of the golden bead. And that's why now there's an issue around the golden bead and says it actually had disappeared. And we are interested to know where would the bead go to and what's going on, because it was hidden in a place that is not accessible. And as long as you don't have that bead, the golden beads, then you're not powerful. That is superstition. It's believing into something that will influence your power, your ability to rule, and so on. And they actually are very convinced. That's why even at the end of the discussion, where we have Oyundi and Telltale, they're telling the royal owl that, why would you call yourself the leader? Where is your golden bead? You don't even know where it is. So as long as you don't have it, then you're not our leader. And so that goes on with the issue of superstition. And I want to stop the religion and superstition at that, and hoping that at your own time you will find other illustrations. And if you find them, and when you find them, do not hesitate to comment and let me know what you think about that. I would love to hear it. All right, yes, can we move on to the next one? And the next one we are going to look at is press and the freedom of expression. Press and freedom of expression. This will take a few more minutes, and we begin right from the beginning of the text, where we have Osogo, who is playing the flute. And by the end of the day, first we are told that Red String is not very happy about this flute. And even the other Moneybags and Royal Owl, we realize that they don't like when Osogo is playing the flute. And actually they will find out, they wish to find a way of silencing him. They wish to find a way of making sure that he does not do that anymore. And, and we also, when you're talking about the Cunningbird who was killed at the beginning of the text, we are told it's because she voiced her thoughts. She communicated what she thought. She actually was very expressive. And Red String says that you can't just keep talking about the truth irresponsibly. that you can, if you're irresponsible in your speech, in the things that you're talking about, then you should be able to pay for to handle the consequences of that. And so therefore we realize that you're not allowed to be speaking. The freedom of expression is not there. And that's why he's being asked even by Osogo, does that mean that when someone speaks their mind, even Telltale is asking, are you telling me that because I am articulate, I am raising my issues, I am vocal about what it is that needs to be done or is not being done, does it mean that I am worthy being killed or being punished for that? Where is the freedom for me to express myself? And we realize that that is not happening in this text. And we see that a lot, even when the use of the propagandists, that is Aram TD and Telltale, in the passing of information. That Telltale is the one of the informal mode of communication. She's the one who tells the other birds, warns them when there is danger. If there is any important communication to be done, they do it through Telltale. And so Aram TD, and of course, you know, Telltale was used some time back badly. I mean, to hurt the other birds. But of course, now we can see her trying to do things differently. And Aram TD is actually now the one of the people, when we talk about press and the communication and all that, we realize that that Aram TD is being used by the owls to do the same. And that's why even when he's getting killed, we are told that he had so much dossier. He had so much hidden information that Moneybags and Red String knew that if Aram TD decides to expose us, we'll be in a lot of problems. And so there's no freedom even for you to just even express yourself and say whatever it is that you think. And there's a comment that is between Red String and Aram TD, and says that there is the king has written a book, and that book, in that there's a law. There's a certain law that he says, or a policy, how to hoot. You know, how to hoot. And of course, you know that because you're talking about the owls, their way of expressing themselves is through hooting, just like the way the sounds they make. A cat meows, a cow moos, and a goat does this and the other. So what does the owls do? They hoot. But maybe the other birds, they're the ones who are twittering and all that and chirping. And so in that book, there is a law on how to hoot. So there's a way, the strategy, there's a way you do it. You don't just move and do things without considering. You must have a strategy. And that's why even where he says that you don't go doing so many things, you need to kill one enemy, deal with one enemy at a time. So we're talking about freedom of expression. We're talking about the press, that actually the release of information, you do it with strategy. You don't just go talking about everything, telling everyone about everything. You need to do it with style. And it's very unfortunate that these things do not favor the birds. So the death of Aram TD and the arrest of Telltale is actually an attempt to disempower that, you know, that propaganda movement and the agents of that communication. And so do you realize that when these two are off the picture is when Oyundi is able to do the things she needed to do? Maybe because when these two were involved, especially Aram TD, there was so much effect and it was very difficult for them to ever move on. But with the death of Aram TD, it becomes a bit easier for you to move because information is power. When you let information out there, just like what happens on social media, if a post begins from here and then it goes viral, it's passed on to the other people, it will have devastating effects. The same thing with the absence of Aram TD, there are quite a number of things that are able to just move on well. And so let's talk about the Third Eye Television, Third Eye View Television Network. There is the media on this point, and we are told that actually this was being taken care of by very close relatives of a son to Moneybags and another person. And we are told that Veteran P and Little P are members of that network, of that, let's say, television network. And we see very different responses as you talk about the press. And we're seeing that Veteran P has been arrested so many times, so he says, that he's been arrested many times. But Little P, unfortunately, on the other side, that is not the same thing with him. For him, he's the one who will comfortably go and snitch on the others. He will go and tell on the other birds, like they are friends with the social owl. And remember that social owl is a girlfriend to a mistress to Moneybag. So if anything, little P tells anything to Socialite Owl, then Socialite Owl will tell it to Moneybag. So remember that that little P is a friend to Socialite Owl, and Socialite Owl is the mistress to Moneybags, and therefore anything that little P knows tells it to Socialite Owl, then Socialite Owl tells it to Moneybags. Then you can imagine how complicated that situation will be. So as we talk about the press, we are talking about the lack of the dignity that we expect, or the sensitivity of that sector as far as even maintaining of peace is concerned. We realize that that is not happening so much as it should be. But thank God for Veteran P, who has been able to be firm, he's reliable, he's been bold, he speaks out his mind. And if you look at through the text, where Veteran P is, he's the one who will question. He will ask Moneybags questions, he will respond to Red String. And even when we are having this ceremony where Oyundi is being sworn in, you can see his sentiments towards the whole thing, and you can realize that he's not biased, and so on. And so as we talk about the press and the freedom of expression, we cannot ignore the role of Veteran P and the role of Little P as the members of the Bird's Eye View television network. And so let me move on to the rebel owls that are denied a voice in the parliament, like the Iron Lady and the Straight-Eyed. They are silenced by being, and they are being ejected out of the house, of the chambers. And why are they being thrown out? Because they have communicated, or they have said something that is opposite of what is expected of them. Of course, Moneybags would want everybody. In fact, they've bought the opposition, the so-called the opposition. They have bought the opposition so that they can support the Moonlight Bill. But now when these two, their freedom of expression is interfered with, when they are not given an opportunity even to voice their ideas concerning the Moonlight Bill, they have to take it whether they like it or not. Of course, the freedom of expression is not observed. And like we said, the Moonlight Bill specifically is to interfere with the freedom of speech, and because they're not supposed to be moving, twittering, and doing all those kind of things. And so I want to let us to stop it at that on the press and the freedom of expression, and maybe just say that the Birds, there was so much they were dictated to what they needed to say, if there was even songs, what songs you can sing, what songs you can't sing. When you sing this song, it's treason. When you sing this other song, it's, it's not taken kindly. When you sing this song, it is incitement, and so on. And that's why Osogo is having an issue, is being not taken so well, and his flute. And they're not happy about Osogo. And that song of coming up every time we hear that Osogo's song and his flute is coming up every time. It is freedom of expression, but it's not allowed. You're not allowed to be singing anyhowly. And remember, even when Aram Tidi was sent to go and pass the message, at some point, Moneybags and Red Strings, when they listened to that song, they're like, no, what song is that he's singing? That sounds the song of freedom, the one that we sang when we were fighting for our own freedom. And so they are able to identify the message being put across by use of songs. And therefore, the freedom of expression is messed up at that moment when they say, you cannot sing that song. Why is he singing that song? You cannot play your flute. You cannot, because there's the songs themselves, they're not just songs, but they are messages that are being passed across. And so I will stop at that with the press and the freedom of expression. I am hoping that it's a bit clearer to you, and that you can also be able to look at it more differently. I would love to hear what you think. So finally, on this issue of themes, let me just go very briefly on the issue of suffering and exploitation. This one, I will not explain a lot, because most of the illustrations that are here are all over. On the misuse of power, on betrayal, on freedom of expression, all that, they will culminate into suffering. And I thought I want to finish up on this, on the themes with the suffering, and I will not even explain more because I've already explained. But whatever it is you're looking at, make sure that you're able to express. If it's whatever illustration you have for whatever theme, make sure that you communicate. There is the suffering, there is betrayal, there is misuse of power, there is violence, there is injustice, all that. Make sure that it comes out well. Number one, on suffering is the condition, the living condition of the birds. We are told that they live in a very desolate, neglected place as compared to the royal trees. Remember on the last act, is it the last or the second last, where we have a contrast of the royal trees and the river that is passing by there, and even if it's not very, very heavy. And the other part, we have a desolate, trees are battered, the nests are hanging precariously, and so on. And so it presents a very sad picture of the rest of the places for the birds, and a very comfortable, affluent life for the royal owls and his people. And so when we see that, there must be a lot of suffering that is going on. And remember, as we talk about this, we're also saying how the birds would be told they would travel, they would fly so many kilometers away to look for water. And so there's a lot of suffering that is going on. They have no food. There is a lot of, poverty that is going on. There's lack, and there is need for something to happen. But unfortunately, the leaders, instead of finding ways of making it easier for these desolate people and desolate birds, they actually make it worse. They actually ask for the tax on top of their problems. So that is on suffering. We also can... Yes, and the day birds are also not represented in government. That is another very important point on suffering, that because of this, the fact that there is no one to speak on their behalf, the birds are bound to suffer, because the policies and the laws that are made in that chamber will never be for the advantage of the birds. They will always be at the advantage of the owls, who are the only people in parliament. The only birds in the parliament. You realize that even this iron lady and this other feathered beak who'd want to, and straight-eyed, who'd want to protect the birds, they don't always do that. Sometimes they want to take care of their own personal needs. Like, you remember there was a time they passed a bill where they were added a portion of number of rats they are eating every night. It was raised. And the others, so they were being challenged by money bags. The other day when we were raising your allowances, when you're raising your portion, you didn't complain. And now you're complaining about the moonlight bill. So what we are saying is that the people who are in leadership, the people who are in parliament, they really do not care about the welfare of the birds. And it's unfortunate that that will not happen, because there is no representation. They are not well represented inside there. And so that causes them to suffer. It causes them to go through a difficult time. So the moonlight bill, of course, disadvantages the birds, like I had said earlier, and makes them suffer, and at the expense of the owls. They benefit at the expense of the other birds. And then we also see that Moneybags and his people are keen to control the population of the birds. They don't want them to become so many, and of course they think that maybe they will threaten them, and so they mess up with the eggs. And that's why even the security tender that Moneybags wanted to be in charge of and made sure he's in charge of, it's not because he really cares about that, but he will want to make sure that he's in charge. He's aware of how many eggs are being laid every day. And also at that point, it's also good to mention that they are suffering because these same birds that were the owls that are supposed to protect the birds, they actually bring in from the animal kingdom, animals that are actually messing them up. They actually are not helping. They're making the situation worse. You realize that most of those things, like the python, and who is very ruthless, Oleg tiger, who is not supposed to be a bird, so to speak, because he's a bat. And they had to insist in parliament that he should be allowed to be given citizenship, and they are bringing him on board because they want him to benefit, to become part of their system. And so when that happens, they bring those animals, and those animals come and harass them. They come and harass them at their eggs. Then snakes come and eat their eggs and so on. And they have to defend themselves. They say that at some point, Oyundi is the one who had to make sure that she had to look for ants, you know, to come and protect them from the harassment from the snakes, you know, and really it's just a very difficult situation. So as we talk about suffering, it's like perpetually the birds will have to keep fighting for survival. It's never easy for them. And so as we talk about the mongoose who used to steal their eggs, and the python who is also as the executioner, and the hangman, and there's so much suffering that is going on with the birds. And so as we talk about exploitation, it's good to mention that. The massacre of the weaver birds, that is when the 33 of them were killed, where Osogo was supposed to be part of them. The family of Osogo was also caught up in that. Now that is suffering. And why are they being killed? And we really don't, we know that they didn't deserve that. The killing of Aramtidi is also a part of suffering. We know that the Hornbills were very sad. They were very annoyed about it. And there's a lot of pain that is going on with them. And of course, the harassment of Telltale and Oyundi, they had to go into hiding into the animal kingdom because of the much suffering that was there. And I think at this point is when Oyundi came across Nyakarondo, the hare, who actually showed him what to do and how to defend himself, and so on. And so Osogo, of course, throughout the sadness of Osogo, we are able to see that there is so much pain. That's why the song, the flute, the singing, all that is bringing about the issue of the suffering that is going on. And I want to stop it at that, on the issue of the suffering, and knowing that there are so many illustrations to tell us about the suffering. There are so many other themes in this book, so many of them, and maybe it's just important for us to mention about them. We talk about corruption, we're talking about bribery, we're talking about nepotism, and so many things, and determination, talking about optimism, and you know, hard work. All those are themes that we can look at, but because of time we may not be able to look at all of them, and I want to encourage you to find time and have a look at them. Could there be a theme that you'd want us to look at? Could there be a theme that you don't understand very well? I would love to have a look at it with you. I would want to encourage you and support you in coming up with solid illustrations for the same. So if you really have something you'd want to ask or something you'd want to comment on, let's meet at the comment section and let's engage. So I want to stop it at that. Thank you very much. I will see you in the next video. We'll be talking about the styles and the stylistic devices used in the Parliament of Owls. Thank you very much.